Hello all YouTubers, I am the Weather Dude. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you for tuning back into this severe weather video for July 16th, 2020. Before I get on with today's video, however, I would ask that every single one of you please smash that subscribe button and ring the bell notifications. Thank you guys so much for 600 subscribers. Let's get to our next goal of 700 subscribers and to our next long-term goal of the big 1,000. So please smash that subscribe button and ring the bell notifications, as well as watching the whole video. Both of these things really do support my channel, and watching the whole video, it's a win-win. You get the best weather content, and I get the watch time, which I really do need for my channel. And please also like and share this video. Thank you. Now let's get on with today's video. So today I am back with another severe weather video, and today we're going to be focusing on tomorrow, July 17th, and the next day, July 18th here, and a severe weather threat that we're going to be seeing for the north central and the Midwest part of the United States for July 17th and 18th, so the next day and the day after that. So as you can see by the categorical risk for tomorrow, again, let me get my sense of time here. Tomorrow is Friday. Like I say all the time, I lose my sense of time here. So for Friday here, you see that our severe weather threat is mainly focused on the north central, basically from western Wisconsin back through North Dakota here. But the area with the biggest threats is probably going to be within the yellow and orange regions, okay, including the tri-state borders of South Dakota as well as Minnesota as well. But for the two Dakotas as well as Minnesota and even to westernmost Wisconsin, that's going to be your bigger threat area for tomorrow here. As you can see, luckily this area isn't too populated. With the exception of Minneapolis being within that region. But other than that, North Central isn't too populated of a region. So in total, about 7.5 to 8 million people under the gun for severe weather tomorrow. And you can see that again includes places like Minneapolis, St. Paul, Duluth, Bismarck, Aberdeen. In terms of tornado threat, our region in green 2%, in brown 5% here. That higher chance does include St. Cloud, Grand Forks, Aberdeen. And the wind, wherever you see these black lines here, these black little lines, that means significant severe. That is the worst level there is on this graphic here. So from Minneapolis, actually it doesn't include, it's just west of Minneapolis, so just west of Minneapolis, southeastern North Dakota, northeastern South Dakota, western Minnesota, you're within that red and that black shaded region. That's the worst threat you could have. Same thing goes for hail. If you live in central North Dakota, you have the greatest threat for hail tomorrow in a significant severe region, which includes about 300,000 of you unlucky people, sadly, okay, because we know hail it can do a lot of damage to windshields, to houses, and Bismarck is included in that significant severe, as well as Minot, Jamestown, Devil's Lake, Mandan, but even Fargo and Minneapolis still within that 5 to 15%, that moderate range in terms of hail threats for tomorrow. Now the next day, which is Saturday, all right, is our day 3. We consider our day 3 outlook because day 1 is today, day 2 is tomorrow, and so on. The threat does move more towards the Midwest, so like the UP, Michigan, down through eastern South Dakota, moving a little bit farther to the east and towards the south. But the bigger threat, not enhanced, but still we got a slight threat, which is the bigger threat for north central Wisconsin, including Madison, Wisconsin, as well as down through, say, south central Minnesota. That does include Minneapolis. So Minneapolis, you got 2 days in a row, at least, with some potential threats here. And again, probabilistic, just the same thing, just in a different shade of color here. But you can see again, 5 and then 15% within that region here. The little bullseye for tomorrow that I told you about earlier. So we're going to be focusing on both Friday and Saturday for today. Now, we're going to be taking a look at the NAM 3KM model. If you watch my severe weather videos, you would know that I usually do high resolution model and NAM 3KM. But since we're going to be looking at tomorrow and the next day, I'm going to use the NAM 3KM and another model, another surprise model, because sadly the high resolution model doesn't go out that far, so I can't exactly use it. So it'll be another surprise model, so stick around for a little bit if you want to find that out, what I'm going to be using as my next model. But for now, let's look at the NAM 3KM model here, and we're going to be going to Friday here, which is tomorrow. Alright, and you can see that we're going to have a line of severe weather that's going to be developing. Now, at first, it may not look like anything. Matter of fact, when you look at 5 p.m. on Friday, there is a nice strong surface low here, nice low pressure. We do have some spotty storms, but it doesn't look all that much. Well, look what happens a few hours later. This is by 8 p.m. This is about 3 or so hours later, and you see it's not a line necessarily, but we definitely have 2 strong clusters moving through the Dakotas, particularly North Dakota. A little extends a little bit into South Dakota. But look what happens at 11 p.m. It starts to form into more of a line, nice little cluster slash line of storms, and even makes that bow echo, that backward C, and you can see that that curve in there. That could really increase the wind threat, make the winds go stronger, 70, 80 miles an hour. All right, and then when we talk about 2 a.m., it goes through southeastern North Dakota, eastern South Dakota, starting to head into Minnesota. All right, it's gonna be a powerful line of storms that moves through. All right, so don't take this with a grain of salt here. And here is 5 o'clock in the morning, and you can see it really forms into a line as it moves through Minnesota here. So Minneapolis is going to get really like the brunt of it here into the early morning. All right, but here you go, northern Wisconsin right down through the middle of Minnesota here, and by 8 a.m., look at this. The line gets even more organized, which is kind of unusual. Moving right through northern Wisconsin, UP, Michigan is starting to enter now, as well as entering southeastern South Dakota, north central Iowa. All right, and then eventually by 11 a.m. the next day, that line does kind of hold together and makes its way towards the east there, and then that'll be the case for tomorrow. Make it the leftovers of that line for, say, Wisconsin through eastern Minnesota into UP and Michigan, and then it's all out. Now, in terms of the dew points, because we know that moisture is a key part in forming these thunderstorms, so heading towards Friday, you can see that by 11 a.m. this is 2 p.m. All right, so let's look like 2 o'clock in the afternoon here, and you can see there's a spot like anywhere in that dark shaded green where we don't have our wind shear values are below 60, so kind of some more comfortable air. But when you look at the dark teal and the lavender, this is your very moist air that can really get those thunderstorms developing. And you can see where the thunderstorms will be developing in this region where dew points are in the 60s, which is kind of muggy, but it's not completely oppressive. You can see like 67, 60. It's going to feel a little uncomfortable, but that lavender shade, 77, 78, even a couple of patches of close to 80, that's your real uncomfortable air that you do not want to feel. You don't want to experience it. The air you can wear. I mean, I've been in dew points in the 70s before. Take it from me, it does not feel good. Now, looking through 8 p.m. as the storms are moving through, again, now the atmosphere becomes kind of moist, and southeast of Nebraska, our dew points get to 80 plus degrees, which, if you are familiar with the dew points, you know that they don't reach 80 too often. All right, that's just excessively moist. There's not even a word. Even 70s is extreme, or at least like strong. 80s is kind of excessive and kind of like, I wouldn't say unheard of, but even as you head to 11 p.m. this evening, even as you head to 11 o'clock, you can see that still a very moist atmosphere, especially for the tri-state border of the two Dakotas as well as Minnesota here. Definitely dew points in the 70s for that location as well. Even heading through the day, or overnight, early Saturday, you can see once the line moves through here, here's your line of storms. Behind it, dew points will chill into the 60s, which is still muggy but not as bad. All right, but out ahead of that line, no, dew points are well into the 70s, and it's really muggy, but at least behind it, it's a little better. All right, and then behind the line, we get more, even higher. Dew points are going to get to 83 at 8 p.m. on Saturday in Minnesota. 83 degree dew points. And not only that, look how widespread it is. There's a huge area of pink. Usually it's like kind of localized, but it's widespread there. So that's something we got to worry about too. Let's take a look at the surface-based CAPE now. That CAPE energy in the atmosphere. And you can see, oops, sorry about that. It does that once in a while. Click the map by accident. If you look to the side of the map, you can get like a sounding for it. But heading through the day tomorrow and Friday, you can see, here you go. Here's your real instability that we have into the Dakotas. And it's really extreme for, Nebraska and South Dakota. Luckily, the storms won't be really developing down there. Otherwise, that'd be really, really catastrophic setup. But still, you got the line coming through. You got the line of storms coming through. And ahead of those line of storms, you're going to have it moving into air of 3,004, even close to 5,000 joules per kilogram. So, very, very energetic atmosphere. But look what happens behind the line now. We lose our heat energy almost completely, at least, which is sort of good news. I'm going to kind of sort of eliminate that thunderstorm threat. But then, I mean, even as we head through Saturday, the threat is going to be in this region right here again from Minnesota through Wisconsin until it all moves out. Now, how about the wind shear? We want the wind shear, all right, to really get those storms spinning here. And you can see that we definitely do have some. This is exactly where the storms are going to be starting to form. So right on time there, that wind shear is. Some stronger wind shear for North Dakota. And then as we head through time, look at this. Now, if the storms were like, let's say the storms were over here, and the wind shear was back here, we wouldn't have as high of a tornado threat. But since the storms will pretty much be at just about this point at 2 o'clock in the morning, and that's where we have some high wind shear values, those storms could really get spinning. Maybe some tornadoes, even produce some hail as well. So that's a dangerous threat. And when those conditions line up like that, you definitely want to prepare and watch out. Again, enhanced threat by the Storm Prediction Center here. Now, look what happens here and the supercell composites, where you can really conditions to really develop those supercells. Definitely for central eastern South Dakota through southwestern Minnesota and northwestern Iowa, all places we can force some supercells here. The conditions are just right in these regions, in orange and red and purple. The conditions are just right. Even heading through overnight and even through today, Saturday. All right, we're going to see some building supercell composite values for Minnesota and through Wisconsin and down through Iowa as well. So that's a threat to watch out for as well. Now, significant tornado parameters. All right, these are like there are conditions right to have like a significant tornado blow through here. Look at overnight. You can see Minnesota through North Dakota, down through eastern South Dakota, northern Nebraska. Definitely could have the chance to see some decently significant tornadoes and slightly smaller threat as we head through today, Saturday, but still some damaging clusters potentially, maybe some damaging storms with some tornadoes that are definitely possible. Now here's what we call the updraft velocities. We know that when we get strong updrafts, the air can really rise into the thunderstorm, and strong updrafts can sometimes result in very strong downdrafts. And what this map is going to be telling us, this map is basically the updraft velocities. So we're going to be looking at the run max here. Usually I don't show like the whole entire run, I usually show a couple hours at a time, but you can see, like, look at where these storms move through here. Right here, you can see go to the end of the loop, and you can see where we're going to have our stronger areas of updraft. Right where the Storm Prediction Center, ironically, put their area of investigation, so to speak, like that area of slight and enhanced risk of severe weather for tomorrow and Saturday. Ironically, it falls in the same region where we have high updraft velocity values. Notice it's kind of spotty in nature, right? There's some areas with red, and then a couple miles to the southwest, there's white, which means not much updraft. So when you get that locally strong updraft, that can result in locally strong downdrafts. It can produce a lot of rain and wind. It can produce some tornadoes as well. Definitely can happen. But when we get that storm to spin, we need those what's called turning of the winds with height. This is similar to wind shear, except what this map is going to tell us is where are those winds coming from, basically. And this can really tell us, can we really develop a tornado? Are the conditions really right? Now, somewhat of a good news is that when the storm's not coming through, this is 5 o'clock, and you can see how, don't focus on the black. The black arrow doesn't matter because that's too high in the atmosphere. We're focusing on the red and the blue ones because notice how the red and the blue needles, at least for a place like North Dakota and northern South Dakota, the winds from the surface and the winds from 5,000 feet seem to be coming out of the same direction. And that typically reduces the tornado threat. However, that's not quite true for southeastern South Dakota and northeastern Nebraska. Winds from southeast of the surface, winds from southwest at 5,000 feet can really get those tornadoes, those storms spinning into tornadoes. So it's not until overnight, when in North Dakota, when in Minnesota and South Dakota, where we see surface winds out of the southeast and 5,000 feet winds out of the southwest, and this is when you get your tornado threat. So luckily, you know, for you guys in central North Dakota, I'm not saying you can't have a tornado, but I'm saying the threat is lower. Then I think that even overnight into the day tomorrow, I think this region right here could definitely have some turning winds with height, some vertical shear, maybe some tornadoes potentially. Now, typically, before I move on to my next model, just like as like a little break in between, so I can separate which model is which. This is the Weather Prediction Center. All right, both Storm Prediction Center, Weather Prediction Center, both by NOAA here, NOAA. And you can see that our threat for excessive rainfall, we do have some slight areas of excessive rainfall possible for Dakotas, North Dakota, South Dakota, as well as pretty much all of northern and central Minnesota as well, even head through Wisconsin for Friday. And then for Saturday, that threat is moving more into the UP in Michigan and northern Wisconsin, and it's right, and that's pretty much where our severe weather threat's going to be tomorrow too. So sometimes what we see is, let's say like we're in this region right here, like in the south, and the severe weather might be down here, but the excessive rainfall might be like way up here. And that does happen sometimes, but in this scenario, the rainfall will be in the same region where the severe weather is. So it's kind of like a 1-2 punch. You're kind of like a double-edged sword in this sort of scenario. So definitely watch out for excessive rainfall tomorrow. Definitely some damaging winds, some big hail is definitely possible. This region is definitely known for its hail. Now, next model, all right, and obviously last model, is going to be the HRW, I can't even say it sometimes, the HRW WRF ARW. And if you go to Pivotal Weather, I use these sometimes when I track winter storms back in the wintertime. You can see that there is a series of models right here. There's a bunch of HWF models. I chose this one because this is the one I see people use the most, and I know this one's like one of the more accurate ones, one of the more accurate version at least. And you can see that as we head through the day Friday, I want you to take a look at how these thunderstorms develop here. Look at this. And they don't even develop until later. This is 8 p.m. and you can see our line is just starting to get its act together through North Dakota, through extreme northern South Dakota, And then here is midnight, and look at this. By midnight, it's a very thick line of storms too. Usually the line is very, sometimes the lines are very thin, but they're intense and they move through real quick. This one, the line is very thick, and it's definitely wider. And what that means is that the rainfall, and since the rainfall, there's more rainfall coverage from edge to edge of the storm here. The severe weather threat could be lasting for a lot longer since the line is a lot thicker. It's definitely wider, and that means that it's just going to increase the duration of thunderstorms and the duration of rainfall here. And this is by midnight, by the way. All right, and then by the time we head into, this is 8Z, so this is 4 o'clock in the morning. You can see the line becomes a little bit more disorganized because we're getting into the morning time. We're a little bit far north. So the line's going to start to fall apart a little bit, but then the line starts to get a little skinnier again. Then it becomes more like your bow echo kind of line. So still very dangerous threat, even as we head through tomorrow morning, and then moves into Wisconsin, UP, Michigan as we head towards late morning, afternoon. Now, how about these dew points? How moist is the atmosphere going to be? And the answer to that is very. This model says that Dakotas, Minnesota, even northern Minnesota could even see dew points well into the 70s, and that's even worse. That will definitely increase our rainfall threat, definitely. All right. Look at this. Look. We just got this funneling air of lavenders. These 70-degree plus dew points, 70, 72. Definitely gonna be throughout the day. And then once the line moves through, you can see we got the rising air from the south. And once the line moves through, conditions, dew points might get into the 60s, which is the upper 50s. Which 50s is comfortable. Once you drop to 59 and lower, that's where it starts to get pretty comfortable. And then 10 is just like bone dry, for example. But 70s is definitely oppressive. 60s is like, okay, it's not completely horrible. And 50s and 40s is definitely your comfortable air. And once that line moves through, you still have some muggy air. So still going to have like that, what you call like the wring out the towel kind of atmosphere, and the water's going to kind of come out. And that will definitely be the case. So definitely that's a reason why we can see increased threat of rainfall, and even through Friday and Saturday for this region here. Now, how about not the cyclonic heat, but the heat in the atmosphere, the heat energy that we need to really develop these thunderstorms, is the CAPE in the atmosphere. There's a lot of it, especially from northern Nebraska through eastern South Dakota, through southeastern North Dakota here. All right, and you can just see how the air keeps on rising. We get that rising flow from the Gulf of Mexico, and then eventually, once the line moves through, you can see it's a sharp cutoff, and then we get some cooler, drier air. Conditions start to cool off a little bit. But I think Saturday will almost be a repeat day, except conditions will be, all the worst of the storms will be just off to the east. But this is still a pretty serious thunderstorm threat for tomorrow, for Saturday. I mean, winds could even be hurricane force. I mean, some of these obviously won't be lasting that long, but we can still see winds up to hurricane force at times, 70, 75, and more than that. All right, with the wind shear that we're going to be seeing as well. And look at this. Here is 8 p.m. on Friday. You can see that's where the thunderstorms are starting to develop, and right along that line of storms, you got your wind shear, your stronger wind shear values, and look at this. Even more wind shear here. As we head through, say, 1 a.m. Saturday, that's going to be the case, all right? And because of that increased wind shear, we're going to have increased tornado threats here. Sadly, sometimes what happens is a thunderstorm comes through, and then the wind shear comes in behind it, and that reduces tornado threats. Sadly, this won't be the case. You got to remember, this region is prone to tornadoes anyway. They get tornadoes a lot. This is kind of part of Tornado Alley almost. So when we look at the supercell composite, because remember, it's all plain fields out here. All right, so this is where your thunderstorms can really grow, or the tornadoes. That's another good thing. At least there's like if there's like major cities out here, the amount of people that these storms would affect would be drastically higher. Thankfully, it's not the case, but still, look at your supercell composites. And you still have high threats of supercells through northern Nebraska, eastern South Dakota, eastern North Dakota here. And look at this. I mean, this is even by about 10 o'clock or so, 10 o'clock in the evening, and you can see we still have some reds and even purples building. So even more, an even greater threat of supercells through Dakotas, through Minnesota. Same thing goes for tornado parameter here, guys. All right, even through Friday, through Saturday, you can see briefly we do have a very 10 p.m. we do have got a really large area, significant tornado parameters to be contend with. This is southeastern North Dakota, eastern South Dakota, northeastern Nebraska, western Minnesota here, and even through northern Iowa. So maybe some tornadoes, maybe some EF1, EF2 tornadoes could be sweeping through the region. I wouldn't doubt any tornadoes stronger than that, actually. I mean, you could definitely see some strong tornadoes. Looks like a lot of the updraft helicities will be more towards the north. So maybe like eastern North Dakota, north central Minnesota, which would mean that our higher rain and wind threat will be farther to the north. But we're going to have to watch, depending on where these storms set up here. And when you finally look at the trending of the winds with height, do we have that? I definitely say yes. All right. We got winds coming out of the southeast and even winds coming out of the south-southwest at 5,000 feet. You're going to have these storms rotating. So definitely something to watch. Thank you guys for watching this video. Stay safe. If you know anyone in the north central and the upper Midwest, definitely tell them to keep safe and tell them to watch this video. Share this video with your friends, guys, and your family. I'm the Weather Dude, signing off. Until next time, thank you guys for watching.